everybody. My name is Jason Henderson. I am a publisher with Mr. Incher Yo, who is also on with Castle Bridge Media. Incher, by the way, we founded the publishing company a few years ago, and Incher to this day designs every single one of the covers that we put out. So you can kind of see them behind me, the very beautiful covers of Dream State and Dark of the Curl. Both of them came off of Incher's Mac, and I am always just amazed at what my partner is able to create. Okay, so this is our Deadly Summer event. We called it that because we released 2 scary novels this summer, which was a first for us to actually have 2 novels, both of which were somewhat similar in tone, down to the fact that both of them have beaches and both of them have people in trouble in the waves, and that's where the similarities more or less end, and that's what makes it really exciting. So I'm going to talk to Martin Ott, and I'm going to talk to Lee Riling. And Lee, you won't see on the cover of her book, which is crazy because Lee is actually one of 2. She and I co-wrote the book, The Dark of the Curl, under the very strange name of Peyton Douglas. But to get started first with Martin Ott, who is the author of the new book, Dream State, which just came out last month from Castle Bridge Media in both paperback and Kindle Unlimited. Martin is the author of 10 books of poetry and fiction. He is the winner of the De Novo and Sandine Prizes. He is a former U.S. Army interrogator, longtime LA resident. He's in today from Los Angeles. One of the great things about these events is that I can be in Denver, Colorado, and our author can be wherever he is. Martin, welcome. And why don't you tell us about the book Dream State, and then go into my reading is about this and go into your reading.
Sure. Dream State is a novel about an island in Belize that, along with the world, undergoes a natural disaster. An asteroid hits the moon, and this has some unintended consequences in that people lose the ability to sleep. And what happens is that there are forces, different sort of communities on the island, sort of the native people who've lived there for generations, a resort and a Navy SEAL base, and they already have sort of an uneasy alliance, and things really go haywire very quick when they are cut off and they lose sort of their sanity slowly. So kind of winged that a little bit, but that's what the book's about.
No, that was an excellent elevator pitch. Yeah, the moon becomes destabilized, and as soon as that happens, it throws everybody on the earth off. And it means that all these people on this island are basically disrupted and sleep deprived. So I asked each of you to choose a short reading. So why don't you give us something that gives us a flavor of the book?
Sure, will do. Thanks, Jay. Right. So I'm going to start in chapter 3 with my third character, Marley, who's working at his grandfather's bar, one of those summer jobs that maybe many of us have had over time, and just going to jump right in. What's happened in the first 2 chapters is we've gotten introduced to the other main characters on the island, and they all come together at the local watering hole. Marley thought of Cava as almost an extension of the resort, as a cobblestone path between the two was just a stone's throw away from the swimming pool. Rex would have bristled at this. Grandpappy was his own man and owed his loyalty to himself and his family. Russell was more differential to Rex than the previous resort owner Quinn, who'd been batshit crazy. The current resort owner was at his usual table, drinking a club soda, his girlfriend Daniela on one side and a tall buxom redhead on the other. These women stared each other down and held onto Russell's arms as though about to snap him in two to make a wish. There were only 2 sailors in the joint tonight. On the weekends, the trainees got shore leave. The SEALs only came in by the handful. Rick sat with his girlfriend Heidi, the dolphin trainer. They were both regulars and a good couple, if Marley could be the judge of such things. A SEAL trainee he didn't know was getting plowed and scowling at the soccer game between Mexico and Costa Rica that Rex had selected from the thousands of choices on the satellite TV. Grandpappy played whatever he liked, whenever he liked. Occasionally, one of the guests tried to bully him into another sporting event or thought he was someone to pour their hearts out to and get sympathy. He was venomous in his advice and unyielding in his observations. He carried the air of a former mobster long after his son had put him out to pasture to clean up the family name. He was a real bastard, and everyone seemed to love him for it. And now he was giving Marley the evil eye. Fine, said Marley under his breath, picking up the drink tickets and starting delivering the orders. He lived for the gossip, for the lives of the other people on the island since his was so empty. He considered the regular clientele as close to friends as he would manage this summer. Tonight it was hopping and he was too busy to stop and chat. His first stop was a double rum and coke for Jira Santos, the D-Stop owner and Daniela's uncle. He had shoulder-length gray hair and a tattoo of a devil on his shoulder, one that was green instead of red, a jungle demon. These two didn't speak often, unlike the boys George, the heavily tanned twins, already hammered and playing a rowdy game of rock, paper, scissors in the corner. Next up was a third margarita for Heidi, the dolphin trainer, not usually a heavy drinker. She was whispering to Rick, her forehead rubbing his brawny shoulder. She held her drink with both hands and looked as though she was going to worship it like an ancient island artifact before pushing the straw into her mouth. Rick's face was redder than the crimson trim of the super gay Belize flag, which depicted a shirtless boy holding an axe next to a slightly darker boy gripping a paddle. Marley had always thought the image was evocative, perhaps an early sign he was gay. The only place the Belize flag flew on the Cay was next to the American flag, visible over the walls of the SEAL compound. Marley's last delivery was a red stripe ordered by the trainee. The dude was barely older than him and had one of those faces that made it seem like he was making fun of you and the world. Perhaps Marley was being oversensitive. He set down the beer and was about to settle the tab when the SEAL jumped to his feet. Marley could hear heavy boots stomping toward him from behind. He stepped sideways to avoid a freight train. Heidi's boyfriend approached the table and glared at the trainee. Clint, you didn't finish cleaning your kit? What the hell are you doing here? Rick asked. I'm hanging out in this crappy bar. Looks like I'm surrounded by dumbass civilians while all my friends are picking up babes on the mainland, Clint said. You're on this island because you can't seem to follow orders. Go home. It's a public service to not have you getting drunk and harassing women. You think I harass women? You're blind, dude. I have a story I think you're going to want to hear. Clint's thin face had a few wispy whiskers of red hair on his chin like a baby goat. Clint, shut your face, Heidi called out from across the bar, still gripping the margarita like a religious artifact, but with the liquid now half gone. Yeah, baby, Clint said, giving a mock salute with his beer hand and sloshing beer over his shoulder in the process. The foam splashed the face of Jira passing by to use the bathroom. The D-Stop owner reacted instantly. He shoved Clint so hard that he rammed into a bald man in khaki shorts and white dress shirt who just entered the bar. As the bald man fell backwards, he flailed and caught the tail of Clint's shirt as the trainee ricocheted and grabbed Jira's hands. It was like a demented conga line, comical at first, with the tourist momentum driving the threesome toward the door. I'm the father of the bride, damn it, the tourist cried out. I paid for this whole island. It's our island, Jira snapped, enraged, driving himself into Clint to reach for the bald man's throat on the other side. They were now a whirling six-armed, six-legged beast, bumping into tables and spinning out the door. This was a disaster in the making. Marley wasn't sure what to do as Cava emptied out into a small courtyard with benches, ashtrays, and decorative totems. Heidi's boyfriend Rick was the only one seemingly with a plan. The SEAL marched outside and planted his fist into the other sailor's mouth, stepped on one of Wolf's dress shoes, and tugged on the back of Jira's head with a fistful of white hair. Everyone calm the hell down, Rick barked. Rex rushed out of the bar with a cricket bat and gripped Marley's shoulder, pulling him back out of the press of bodies. Marley glanced at Grandpappy and then back at Rick, who stood like a statue with fists cocked. Marley almost missed it. The nearly full moon glowed over the sailor's hand. An object streaked toward it, a shooting star, a rocket, an asteroid, the finger of some alien god. A silent explosion seemed to leap up from Rick's fist. The moon absorbed the missile, for a moment. Then the familiar silver orb belched out a mushroom cloud, visible even at dusk. The moon, Marley bellowed, thrusting his arm skyward and jabbing a finger at the unfolding scene. The crowd turned, looked toward the moon, and fell silent. Tourists, locals, military alike. Something terrible had happened and was still happening. The moon was spitting out parts of itself, just as Clint was spitting blood from his mouth. The sky was shimmering with shards of lunar debris. Words cannot explain the tragedy. Nothing would ever be the same.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. Thank you very much. Let me ask you something. I know that the obvious question goes to, tell me about this asteroid that's taking out a chunk of the moon, because that is evocative, and it also makes me think of classic sci-fi that I grew up with, like Thundar the Barbarian, right, where a big chunk of the moon's been torn away. But this setting that you have, this island in Belize, which has this military base, plus this resort, plus these locals that sort of are many of them are service industry. What made you choose that setting, you know, and why? I mean, are you familiar with a setting like that, or where did this come from?
It is very similar to a K I was on at one point in my life on vacation, but I knew for this novel I wanted an island setting, and it really seemed to me a place like a small sort of K in Belize had a lot of attributes I was hoping for in order to basically mirror society at sort of a falling apart at a faster pace, because you have all of the elements of colonialism from the past and even the present, where the owner of this resort is now American and actually fighting for the name rights of the island. You have sort of the locals who are either working for the resort or fishing or trying different tourist trades, trying to make a living on this place. And you have a seal base, which is just a bad idea. They're there, and they bring a lot of tension to sort of already tense situation. And I really sort of liked the thought of these elements together. I thought that it would sort of more quickly show what was happening to the rest of the world, maybe even at a degree probably unseen nearly everywhere else, because they lose contact in the first few days.
Did you I was curious if there were any of the characters, because the main point of this book is when the moon changes its orbit, changes its mass, affects how you'll have to explain it to me, but it affects our atmosphere and affects the tides such that people begin to lose sleep. I'd love to hear you talk about what effect that has, but also the effect it has on the particular characters and whether any of those characters were your favorite, like as far as how they reacted and where their stories went.
Sure. It was a little bit of a mystery on trying to sort out what happened that caused people to sleep, because they lost contact with the mainland. Tides is one answer, sort of things falling down from the moon, and sort of a chemical response is another. I purposefully didn't sort it out, and I have had at least a half a dozen readers, kind of poking me in reviews, wishing I had sort of chosen a final sort of reason for it. But I at the time, I thought, life isn't fair. They're cut off, and maybe they won't find out, kind of exactly what's going on, and why, and the sort of the whys of what happened. So that's the first.
I should mention that in Night of the Living Dead, we never do learn exactly why the dead are living. It's never explained. Anyway, continue. You were gonna, the second part, which was about the characters and how they reacted and your favorites.
Sure. So the characters I picked to give a diversity of sort of ages and points of view and where they're at in their lives. They each sort of have a a leg in each of sort of the triangle, sort of the three groups of the island. They all have very conflicted pasts and very sort of traumatic incident in their lives. And to me, that was important. It makes them complicated. It makes it difficult, and they're all kind of reliving their worst tragedies. And they have some heavy stuff in their lives. And I picked these characters because I wanted to pull away that veneer of that sort of that. When you don't sleep, you lose the ability to regulate your emotions. You lose the ability to process things. And, sort of these characters have had complicated lives, and these characters have had trauma, and it was front and center very sort of fast for them to have to deal with.
Uh, we're gonna get back to more questions because we're gonna have them from the audience as after we have Lee do a reading. But the last thing before we move on for now, what would you like? Because there's a lot of books that one can read in the summer. What would you like the reader to take away from this novel? If they're reading Dream State, is it a question of how they would react in such a situation, or what is it?
It's a little bit of that. Intro gave me a beautiful book. And I know some people took it for summer reading on the beach, and this is not a comfort read. This is my point for writing this, I think, is to show that the border between humanity and inhumanity is thin. We know this, obviously. From a historical perspective, we know this generally from life, but this situation, it kind of amps it to 11 sort of very quickly, in the fact that you can't really regulate sort of your emotions. So I just really wanted sort of people to maybe embrace both sides, their humanity and inhumanity, and really, I guess, wrestle with sort of these inner natures, because the demons have come out. I guess is what I'm saying, and in both good and bad ways.
Thank you very much. That's really good. I trust that the people in the audience will have more questions shortly. So I know you're not going anywhere, but stick around. And Lee, so Lee Riling, let's put the spotlight on you for a bit. So Lee Riling is an itinerant teacher, actress, adventuress, mother, and apparently that you call yourself a full-time hobbit. Not sure what that means precisely, but you do write. I met you because you were a voice actress and you did the audiobook for the book that we published, Night of the Bookman. And Dark of the Curl is your first book. And it, co-writing this is a strange activity, and involves.
Was it? Because it was a piece of cake for me.
It was a heck of a lot of work. I can't tell you how much work that actually was. So I asked you guys to choose a short reading. So go ahead and read, and then we'll do some questions, and we'll open up to general questions.
Awesome. So I'm going to apologize. We've been in school a whole week, and I already have the crud. So if I sneeze or cough, apologies.
It'll give you that Kathleen Turner huskiness, that
deep resonant voice.
Yeah.
Chapter 26, if you ever want to get there in your own copy. The torches flickered, the tables were laid, and the music had just begun. Truly had moved a little stiffly at first, but swore up and down that she was able to play. The long taped-up wound was covered by a bright floral Hawaiian-style dress, and her hair was filled with tropical flowers. Betty, too, had a luau look, in a bright pink baby doll flannel number that showed off her long, trim legs with flowers wrapped around each ankle. The bright sound of their music lightened the night as the Legionnaires, their dates, and what New forcefully reminded them were all potential clients, began to arrive. Franny leaned on her staff at the edge of the firelight, keeping watch. Down by the tower, where the curve began, she knew Hooky was watching also. After the incident with Michael earlier, she was even more wary than ever. At the top of the hill overlooking the party, Mutt and Jeff's squad car sat, a visible reminder that the police were on the scene. Kurt and Saul were over at the party tables, helping to serve, while Noop ran around like a man on a mission, solving problems before they even started and making sure that everyone was having a good time. She really was proud of him when she thought about it. He would do an amazing job helping Saul run the cafe. They would be fine without her. Her and her stick. She sighed and swung it half-heartedly. She really did need to learn how to use it properly. Saul had said there was a book in the shop on Bartitsu, but she'd yet to crack it. It wasn't as though she'd had a lot of spare time these days. Ah well, if Eric and the Phantoms did show up, she could at least whack them with her stick. She swung it again, lightly, just testing it against the breeze, and found it caught in someone's hand. She turned, startled, to see Noop. He grinned and let it go, and she gave him a playful whack on the shoulder for his troubles. You look like some kind of wild, pissed-off ocean goddess, he joked, and she found herself relaxing a little bit. Who says I'm not? Watch it took us, or I'll stick an octopus on you. They grinned at each other like the kids they still secretly were, and Noop put up his hands in mock compliance. I'm sorry, your high majesty. Please forgive this poor, unworthy surfer. He bowed playfully like they used to do for Hooky, and they both sombered a bit. In all seriousness, Franny, I really am sorry. I'm sorry about the way things have been lately. I'm sorry about how I've been. There's just so much happening, you know? For you, too. Yeah, it's been a lot. They fell silent for a minute, watching the party start to swing. It was really picking up. There were at least 50 people in attendance who weren't connected to the Legionnaires, and there was a solid line of boys, girls, young men, and young women in front of Gogo's hut, looking to sign up for surfing lessons. Only an hour in, and it could be said that the luau was already quite a success. Truly sounds good. She looks good, too. Said the professor gave her some elixir that made her feel better. She's something, your professor, said Noop, standing companionably beside her. Truly does look good. And yeah, I need to talk to the professor. There's a lot of magic stuff that Saul promises to tell me, but I have a feeling she'll tell me stuff he won't. If there's more of this mishigas out there, I want to be ready for it. You will. You're always ready for anything. Well, almost anything. She cast him a sideways glance. What is that supposed to mean exactly? Noop shifted uncomfortably, then stood his ground and faced her. When are you going to be ready for me? For us? You know we're good together. You know we could make this a life. Come on, Franny, what is it? She gaped at him, and then without thinking, hauled off and hit him with the stick. Ow! Stop deciding my life, she shouted, emphasizing each word with a swing of her stick into the sand. It is not about being ready. It has never been about being ready. I have bigger things to worry about. Like what? Like this nursing thing you want to do? So go do it. I'll still be here. I'll wait. She growled in frustration, throwing her arms in the air. I don't need you to wait. Why do you not understand that I might not come back? I'm not going to make some promise that I can't keep. And no, it's not just nursing. There is a war coming. The world is going to lose its mind again, and I have to be ready for it. Hooky. It was Noop's turn to throw his hands in the air, defeated and disgusted. You're still hung up on Hooky. This was the third time tonight that she had been absolutely stunned by the men in her life. She was getting fed up with it. Me? I'm hung up on Hooky. You're the one who is always bringing his ghost in between us. I don't summon him, you do. So who's the hung up one? You are. You hero worship him. You always did. Yeah, because he was a hero, and that's what you do with heroes. Noop spun, and she was taken aback by the fury in his eyes she had never seen before. Well, I'm a hero too, aren't I? Who jumped out of a helicopter with you and rode the surf to kill the bookman? Who ran around with you and did God knows what, fought whatever thing was in the water with you? Aren't I a hero too? Maybe I'm not some crazy surf mystic like you are, Franny. Maybe I don't have your hoodoo or whatever, but I'm here and I'm fighting too. Doesn't that make me a hero? She looked at him coolly, levelly, the downward look of a growing woman to an angry boy. Heroes know what they are. They don't have to ask, and they don't like to tell. So here's a question for you, Noop. What did you do all that stuff for? He stared at her, his broken heart in his eyes. Christ, Franny, I did it for you. Her own heart hurt as she realized with the quick and cold understanding of unsought maturity that what she had to say next was the truth. That's the wrong answer. She turned and with unshed tears in her eyes made her way to Hookie's hut. That's when the shouting started.
Thank you very much. And also, I guess spoilers for Dark of the Curl that Franny and Noop apparently break up.
That's not a spoiler. We don't know what happens to them. I have people ask, where do I get closure? What's happening with Franny and Noop?
I love that. And I love that. It's so funny thinking of Martin's book and your book and how they're both taking place in this island scenario and this beach, and yet they could not be more different, right? You know, and because yours is a weird dark Gidget story, and Martin's is, as we call it, you know, Yellowjackets meets the resort, you know.
A
So
friend of mine said that Dark of the Curl is Gidget a la MASH.
oh, wait, hang on. Go ahead. Sorry. What is it?
A friend of mine who read it said that it's Gidget a la MASH.
Gidget a la mash. Yeah. No, there are moments in there that are straight out of well, you and I wrote this together, and some of those moments are straight out of China Beach, which you may not even remember China Beach, but China Beach was based. There was this nonfiction book about a nurse who served in Da Nang during Vietnam, and it was called Home by Morning, and that became the show China Beach, and people discovered it that way. But that show's been off the air for 30 years. So okay, so you had a question that you asked yourself that I'm going to ask you. What the heck does this mean? You said, what was it like to go from being 15 characters in a closet to putting those voices on a page? What does that mean?
So, for those of you who don't know, I met Jason through the very excellent podcast Castle of Horror. I was a fan and I reached out, and Jason and Julia and everyone are always just really warm and welcoming and thoughtful, and we got to chatting. And let me tell you, voice acting, reading audiobooks is the best acting gig that you can get, because your scene partner is yourself. Your lines are right in front of you. If you flub the take, you just do it again. And if you don't like how the scene played out, you can just erase it and try again the next day. But it was me in my closet for 12 weeks of a summer 2 years
Good
ago.
grief. Wow.
Because closets are where you get the best acoustics. And it was me. The other great part about it as an actor is it's a huge stretch. I played a cosmic being. I play Franny. I play Saul, who is basically oh, help me, his name is gone.
He was CPO Sharkey. I'm sorry. Now God, what is the matter with me? Oh, you know what? We'll come back to that.
We'll come back
yes.
to it. But Saul is a voice that you, if I'm doing the impression well, you'll recognize. And as an actor,
it was Don Rickles. I can't believe
it's Don Rickles. It's Don Rickles.
Yes.
What is wrong with us? It's because we're all in 10 different time zones.
Yes.
So I'm these 15 characters, and as an actor, your process is to build each character. Who are they? What do they want? What is their background? Where are they from? Where are they going? What's their first, second, and third desires? What drives them? So in doing the voices, I was already doing the acting work for each character. What is it that makes them tick? So the really cool thing about being invited to co-author the second book is that I already had all of this work that I'd done on all these characters. And the other fun part of acting is that you get to make up stuff. You get to make up background if the author doesn't tell you. So for example, I made up an ex-wife for Saul.
Right.
Her name is Magda, and I'm really excited about her if I get to write her, because she's very cool. But I also got to make up more background for Kurt. I got to make up tics and little things that they do with their faces or their hands or their mouths. So it was really fun to be able to just pour all of that work that I'd already done into the outline that Jason gave me.
I was so happy of that, because there were characters there that were in that outline or in the first draft that just didn't have any real depth, and you were able to really bring that to it. I have one last question, then I'd like to open it up to questions for the both of you, and that is, do you, like, when I did the first, so yours is curiously a sequel to another book. When I did the first one, it was clear in my head, this is a weird dark version of those surf party movies of the 60s. Do you have any awareness of what those were, or was this like several layers removed from
I was
that?
awake for Nick at Night with my grandmother. I saw some of those things.
Okay, I was just curious
I'm
if
teasing.
anybody
No,
knows those things. Yeah,
like
the
I'm what people like to generously call an old soul, which means that I'm interested in things that I shouldn't be interested in. So yeah, like Gidget was familiar, but I'm also a millennial, so I'm coming at it through the lens of things that had already spoofed the things that had come before. So, Beach Blanket Bingo, but I understand it through the lens of Hairspray, the musical,
oh right,
right?
yeah.
So, and that time period, because we're starting to get into the 60s, and we're starting to get into the free love movement, we're starting to get into all these cool things that I understand a lot through theater, like the musical Hair. So while I do have understanding of the source material, like I've seen a number of those movies, and since I've been meeting and talking to you, I've been watching like the odd episode here and there of things. I also have that one remove of I've seen it, but I've also seen the spoof, but I've also seen the return to it. And I can also take over here from my more recent time period, and
You're okay. Did you accidentally get muted, Lee? Sorry.
that's okay. I fixed it. So like my perspective now is, okay, we've done Gidget, and now we're doing, and Jason did this. Jason set up Gidget moving into MASH,
Right.
which my husband and I binged over the winter and absolutely broke me. I cried for a long time about MASH. But then I'm taking that and taking what Jason did with not really the monster of the week, but the monster of the summer.
Yeah.
And where do we have monster of the week? We have monster of the week from 90s and early 2000s CW series.
Oh right.
So
yeah.
Buffy and not Enchanted.
Well, there was Charmed.
Charmed, thank you.
That,
Buffy
yes.
and Charmed and all these things that were my sort of dabbling into the occult and the weird and the monsters, but from, again, a woman-centric angle. So I'm like this weird amalgam of layers of things.
Wonderful. All right. I have basically dominated asking you guys stuff. So I want to open it up to anybody else, anybody in the audience, if you want to put something in the chat, or I see Julia waving. So Julia, and it's honor system. So keep yourself muted unless you're talking, but please feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question. Julia, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I apologize. I'm the one who muted you because I was muting somebody who just popped in, and then they moved on the list, so I muted you instead. So sorry about that. But I wanted to say, Lee, that I really enjoyed your audio. I know I've told you this before, but I really enjoyed your reading of the audio book. Is there going to be? First of all, I have two questions. First of all, is there going to be an audio of this one, or is there already? Are you doing one?
Hey, Jason and Insurance, there's going to be an audio of this one.
I mean, I would love there to be. I don't know where the heck you're going to find time. That would be cool. Yeah, because Julia really loves audiobook. Let's talk about that.
I'm married to an author, Jason, and I don't read very many books. I listen to audiobooks. So I'm like, if you record all of them audio, I'll read all your books.
I don't have time to read anymore. I have a 4-year-old who is hopefully asleep upstairs, and a house to clean and grading to do. So all of my, I think I've gotten through most of Neil Gaiman's oeuvre via the audiobooks. So yeah, no, I totally hear you. I have Christmas break.
Okay, let's talk about it.
We'll get there.
Second thing though is, so when Jason said that it was hard to co-write, you said it wasn't, and he said it was. I'd like for you guys to talk about why your experiences were different as far as the co-writing goes.
Jason, you get to go first on that one.
I want to keep this one quick because I want to get to a Martin question. I wrote the outline, which was really like a 40,000 word outline, which was almost a rough draft. And I wrote it by pacing around and talking it into a microphone. And then I gave Lee a transcript and I said, please turn this into a novel. And she got rid of all kinds of crap. And so That looked
So you think it
harder
was
to
hard
me.
for her, but she says it wasn't. So it wasn't that you were saying it was hard for you. I just wanted to clarify that.
No, it's
Okay.
easy for
Yes.
me.
Because it sounded like you were saying, for me, it was hard, but Lee was saying, for me, it was easy. But
No,
you're
no, it
saying, no,
seems,
Lee, you're saying it was easy, but it was actually hard for you. I
It
gotcha.
it wasn't easy in like no writing is easy. And especially because I really love and respect Jason and he's my friend as well as my co-author, I like to think. We should meet
yes,
sometime. That'd be nice. Uh
yes.
um it was hard in terms of I know where he wants to go with the story and I know his flavor because I've listened to him speak and I've read his writing. So I wanted to make sure that I was staying true on the ley line of where the narrative was going. But at the same time, a lot of writing is about killing your darlings or finding the things that don't work or finding the things that almost work. And then, because I'm an editor, like I started as an editor. So I'm really good at finding the things and kind of jiggering them so that they maybe work a little better. So for this, all I did was that works, that doesn't work, that works, that doesn't work. But if I move it here, it works.
Mm.
And then adding scenes in between to streamline it all together, which was really fun. And then I got about halfway through and I said, Jason, don't kill me, but I'm going in a completely different direction. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah. No, and it's fine because to me, I like art better when it surprises, including surprising the artist. And so besides, if there's a plot point that gets cut, you know, you can always use it in a future book. So
Yeah,
it's not a
I've got an
problem.
entire file of stuff that was in the original manuscript that Jason sent me that I'm saving for later.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
So Jay, there's a question in the chat and also Jerry has his hand raised. So the question
So
in the chat is for Martin. It says, Marty, in your research, did you discover anything unexpected about the moon or human sleep? Anything that was unsettling?
Yeah, one thing I know from being a parent and going and having sleep deprivation, and from points in my life where we had, when I lived in San Francisco, and there was a person I knew who went nearly a week without sleep because of drugs and was hallucinating and really was seeing ghosts and was really losing their mind. Together with research is sort of on books about sleep, which really says that it's really the best thing you can do and the very worst thing to not do. It's incredible, all this sort of statistics about sleep deprivation, how harmful it is. All of these things were kind of working in my mind of just something I really wanted to explore what real sleep deprivation looked like. And I don't know about some of you, but I have problems sleeping sometimes. And I'm wrecked, you know, at this point in my life, if I don't get enough. And to me, it was something that I don't know is truly explored enough. And I feel like the characters' personalities changed, and I wanted to sort of get into that too, and the narrative voice changed. So a little bit of a rambling answer.
no, but that's a great answer. That was really good. And I love how you brought it back to those of us who have had kids and you go through a period of your life, you know, where you go, oh, you know, Bobby had a kid, he's coming back to the office, and Bobby comes back and he looks like he's being tortured, basically, you know, like he's going to leave the office at the end of the day and go spend another sleepless night and come back here tomorrow. And that's just that's just life. It's just so weird that's what we put people through. Jerry, you have your hand raised, and
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Go ahead, sir.
Well, thank you. For Martin, I guess which character, a couple questions, which character was the hardest kind of to develop for you to develop, and what character did you see that, you know, you hated to see die, basically? And then obviously, I don't know if we ever addressed your favorite character, if you will touch on all those.
Okay, I'll go real quick. Heidi was my toughest character because I felt on really tough ground. She'd had a hard scrabble life. She put herself through school sort of as an erotic dancer, and kind of had some bad turns in her life, and really wanted to be a scientist, and kind of had fallen into being a dolphin trainer, and things were looking up. But you know, I believe she's the strongest character in the book, but for me, it's really sort of risky ground to sort of to take on her evolution as a person and her past, and I think she does come out of the book the strongest of all the characters. She was the toughest for me. Anyone who dies, who I regret it. Well, you know what? Lillian dying, my wife Lillian, who's on. I kind of named somebody Lillian, and it was a little bit of a private joke. I know she hates it, but that was a bad thing to have done. So I'm very sorry, Lillian, to have done that. To have named somebody that died. And
I presume you didn't plan it that way. You probably had this character that just happened to have your wife's name, which
Yeah,
is a
you
very
know, that's so cute. He's saying that because he killed me off in a book as well. So don't you're not alone, Lillian.
that's yes. I don't blame
Zach,
you.
if
is
you
what
can
I'm
hear
saying.
me, you're safe. I'm not killing you in any books, I promise.
and I think that the character, honestly, the character who I really didn't want to kill off was Enrique. He was an artist. He was kind of sort of a pure soul and a troubled soul. And it was, you know, he might have been the worst death for me, but you know, there's plenty to choose from in this. I definitely people, there's definitely quite a few people who die in this book. So
Well, thank you.
Thank you very, very much. I'm curious, you know, this is a question for each of you, and we'll start with Lee and then go back to Martin. And it's, Lee, this was your first book, and admittedly a co-written book, so there's somewhere out there, maybe very soon, a novel from you. This one took place in the past. Would you like to write something that's closer to home, that's closer to your own reality, or do you think fantasies for you? And when I ask Martin, when I ask you, it's going to be something very similar. Yours took place in a recognizable 2022 or thereabouts, you know, like a recognizable contemporary era. Do you have any hopes of going to a place that's different? Whereas Lee, you started in a place that is, you know, closer to 100 years ago than today, and, you know, California. So do you want to stay in a world that's alien from yours, or where do you want to go?
Oh, I want nothing to do with reality. I'm a high school teacher. let's get as far away from my current reality as possible. No, I really like being in 1958 Laguna Beach, because it's far enough away that it's not immediately familiar, but it's close enough that it's stories my grandparents told, it's films and television that I've seen, and then I get to layer it with the occult. I get to layer it with fantasy. I get to layer it with the world of magic. So I get to take something that is inherently magical, because that's kind of what nostalgia is the magic of remembering a thing not quite the way it actually was, and then adding magic to it. So if there's a book, I have written other novels, none successfully, but if there is another book in me somewhere, I think I definitely enjoy the historical fantasy route. This is really,
Oh, really?
I'm digging it. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Great. Martin, do you think staying in contemporary, or do you want to go farther afield?
By the current book I'm working on, it's got a working title of Future 2.0. It's about prescience and sort of the danger of trying to control, you know, sort of to control things. It's science fiction set in Seattle and which I think is a very sort of relevant American city right now. And the funny thing about this book is I'm writing it, I guess contemporary, but I believe I'm writing it 10 years in the future.
Awesome.
I feel like everything I'm doing is sort of 10 years out, if that makes sense. So I feel like it's kind of pushing me sort of forward on some of the things that I'm exploring. There's some AI involved and some other stuff involved in the book.
Fantastic. Cool. That I really so you're moving into the future. Lee just seems to be in love with the past, and I think that's really cool. So let me open it up. Are there any other questions out there that I can share? Julia, did you have anything else that you would like to go for?
No, I don't see anything else, and I've had my curiosity satiated.
Okay, well then I'm going to go to process because it's the thing that I'm most interested in, because Intra and I talk all the time about process, like what it takes to get a book done, and when we can expect a book from somebody else, when we can expect a book from ourselves. So I'll ask each of you. Martin, how long did it take you to write this book? You're working on a book now. Are you working every day? Like what kind of discipline and process are you trying to bring to it?
For Dream State, I try to write nearly every day, and I try to pick time periods to do it. Funny thing about Dream State is I worked at near Hollywood and Highland by the Man's Chinese, right across the street. Every day I took my lunch and I wrote, and I believe at least a third or more of the book was written while tourists were passing me, while I sat with my lunch I brought from home. Well, and I just made myself write every sort of lunch. I just,
Unlike your phone
no, on my, I took my laptop from the office and I sat it down, and I just, so that was very interesting because I probably was the most productive doing just having that window every day and doing it, and sort of the rest at night. My process now is pretty similar. There's like a 90-minute period after work I try to hit. You know, it's complicated to do, but I'm a big believer that a page a day kind of adds up to a novel. Draft 1, draft 2 over the course of 18 months or 2 years, and that was about my timetable for that. Dream State is probably my timetable for this one as well.
Very good, thank you. Lee, what about you? I mean, I know that you're balancing a tiny child and
Less tiny now.
high
She's
school.
4. It's wild. My heart breaks.
but talk to us a little bit about your process.
So this is my first published novel, but before times, or I guess still, I'm actually a playwright. I write a lot of plays, and I've done very well as a playwright. That's been great. So writing the novel, the process was actually a lot like writing the play. I sat down, I took every single character, Jason, I think you have these, and I made like a spreadsheet basically of this is the character, this is the plot they're in, this is the subplot they're in, this is their primary motivation, this is their secondary motivation, so here's what they want, here's whether or not they get it, so don't look at those if you don't want spoilers.
I remember this, and it flabbergasts me. I can't imagine doing that much.
I love it, and I had a similar spreadsheet for Dream State with characters and character motivations, and I've had similar reactions. I love the spreadsheet though.
No, that's brilliant, especially because you've got multiple narratives going on at once. I only have the one narrative. It's third person omniscience, so I don't have to worry about whose view I'm in. So that's a perfect way to do it, especially for multiple narratives. So I made the spreadsheet, and then I sat down, and just like a play, we like things in odd numbers. We like things in 3s or 5s. So how many beats, how many exciting climax beats per chapter, how many chapters until we get to this beat. So it's building the story so that the climaxes get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and the story gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And just kind of, and it seems really labor intensive, but it gets easier the more you do it, like laying out, okay, and this is where we have this emotional scene for these two characters, and it fits in really neatly, and it kind of lines up with this other emotional scene, and just kind of does this. So the process was do all of that, and then life went crazy, and then Jason emailed me and was like, hey, so when's the book coming? And I went, oh shit. And then I sat down, and every day after school, I'd kick the kids out of the room and write and write and write and write. And part of the reason I'm still in academia is I love deadlines. Deadlines are very comforting to me, especially now that I'm the person that gets to give the deadlines. So honestly, it was just, okay, I have to get through this scene today. It has to be done. It has to happen. My advantage is I'm an English teacher, so I'm editing as I go, so I don't have to go back and re-edit because it's happening in real time, fixing mistakes and spelling errors and all of that. But Jason knows because we're friends on Facebook. I got to a point where he had given me kind of a soft deadline, and I said, okay, this is it. I know where the story has to go. I am staying up tonight until it's done.
Mhm.
And I started at 4 PM, and I didn't finish writing until 4 AM, and that was it.
Wow. That's beautiful. And thank you. I'm glad that you hit your deadline.
It was
That's,
insane, and I loved every minute of it.
No, but that's listening to both of you talk about the spreadsheets, and I love spreadsheets and I love outlines, but I don't think I'm that organized as you describe, and it's that's very inspiring. It makes me want to get more organized in the next thing that I try to accomplish. All right, and that brings us up really to about the end of the hour, unless there are any more questions. But I just want to say the books are Dream State, which just came out last month from Castle Bridge, and you can find it at Amazon and also through Extended, so you can have your bookstore order it. It's available on Kindle and Kindle Unlimited and paperback. And Dark of the Curl from what's called Peyton Douglas, which is really Leaf Riling mainly,
And Jason Henderson.
and Jason Henderson.
There would be no Franny without Jason.
Really, truly, I wrote a 50,000 word, poorly outlined and poorly edited outline. It was just bleh, just me walking around a parking lot for like 3 days. That book, Dark of the Curl, which is in wonderful shape, is in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. So thank you. Thank you everybody for being on, and reach out to us anytime. So
Thanks. I did want to give a shout out to Castle of Horror podcast. It's really a lot of good stuff happens there. Jay.
He just interviewed Neil LaBute. Like, I yelled at him yesterday, and I was like, Jason, you interviewed Neil LaBute. He's like, is that cool? I'm like, yes, I spent an entire semester of college studying him. Yes, it's cool.
Well, it was a good time. It was a really cool conversation. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah, Julia has been on that show for like 10 years, so it's
And
unbelievable.
you still don't say her name right. So I mean,
how am I?
It's not that he doesn't say it right, it's that he doesn't say it the same way every time. He says it a different way every time.
I come by it honestly. I've been saying her name inconsistently for like whatever it is, 30 years.
It's what keeps the marriage fresh.
Yes.
There you go.
Julia and I met when we were 15 years old, just so you know, and we're and we've been married since, I mean, I don't know,
The dawn of time.
Yeah, since the Clinton administration at
Since
least.
God was a boy.
Yes. But no, I always say, whether it's Guzman or Guzman or Guzman or any of those things. So yes, Julia,
As long as you
thank
don't say Guzman, it's all good.
I've never said that in my life. So.
That's right.
Everybody, Incher, thank you very much. Those of you in the audience, thank you so much, and thank you for your questions. And I
Huge
hope
shout out to Incher for all the editing and layout and the amazing covers and being
Incredible.
the details guy.
Thanks, Intro.
Oh, shucks. Thank you guys.
Yeah, it's very inspiring. Thank you, Incher. All right, good night, everybody. Bye.